Blender for Noobs.
Hello, this is Dan Nobles, and welcome to Blender for Noobs, and welcome back to the Omicron 3 modeling project here. And in this part of the tutorial, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the thruster engine changes that I updated, and also do the docking port and maybe some various other pieces. So you can see from this latest render, I've updated it a little bit. It's starting to look pretty cool. So let me show you what changes I made to this. I mean, it looks like we have something very complicated and interesting going on here, but really there's not a whole lot here. I've added a few, used spheres to create these. Just selected and dragged them out a little bit and created some more piping. I took these intakes, did something a little bit clever here. I took the top one and I brought it over, and you can kind of see it going down here, and it actually goes down into the thruster engine. So like, I don't know what there is in space that this thing is sucking in and using it as thrust, but I'm going to call this a tachyon drive. What it's doing is it's sucking in tachyons, free radicals from outer space, and it's bringing it in there, and it's bringing it into this engine, which converts it into this kind of thrust rocket. So if you could buy that. Another thing I did to the bottom one is I just brought it up and put it into the front. Now it doesn't match the circle, of course, completely, but I could actually make that smaller and just put it right in there if I wanted to. But anyway, that's the basic idea of what I did there. And here I took this bottom open. I opened this up a little bit better, and I just created a cube here, created these little pieces coming out, created some more tubing that goes from these little pieces down into, one goes down in the engine, one goes down into this piece right here. And I kind of varied the height a little bit. You can see what I did there. And on the back, I came through and I just used that round piece that I had and extruded it out and just scaled along the Z-axis and just kind of made it a little bit oblong so it would fit this enclosure a little bit. And on the bottom, I didn't like the way that was completely flat, so I just extruded that and brought it up a little bit. Extruded a few areas here, like these little squares you see along here. Extruded that, so it just gives a little bit more texture. So that's basically all I did in it. And what I've done, you can see I've added a few more little tubes here as well. But what I've done is added, it looks like something a little bit complex now, like something's going on. And that's really all you're trying to do here. You're trying to sell it. And what do I mean by sell it? I don't mean like, sell it for money or whatever. What I'm talking about is you're trying to sell the idea that this is possibly something real, and it looks complicated enough like people will look at it and go, okay, something is going on here. I don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is, but if it looks cool enough, then they're gonna start wondering. They're gonna ask questions like, what is that? What's going on? That's pretty cool. I like that. I like what they did there. So you can do different things. I did not do anything over on this side. It's really up to you. I mean, you can duplicate some of this stuff and move it over to the other side like we were doing. Rotating things around. But unless your camera is gonna be seeing that area and you want it to specifically show something, then not a big deal. Also, I'm going to need something to hook onto this brace here, so I'll probably end up closing some of this off. But that is basically it. Another thing that I wanted to mention is, if we look at these pipes here, in the last video I was looking at it, it's like, why isn't this smoothing? They didn't look smooth to me. Well, I realized what I was doing. Do a control up arrow. I had duplicated a lot of this stuff from the, I don't know, I guess from what I was creating on this main piece, but a lot of it's also separate. So what I ended up doing is I duplicated also my edge split modifier. So that, of course, was causing it to look like, it's still splitting the edges. So if I turn that back on, you can see, yeah, okay, there's all the edges. So I was like, why isn't this smooth? I got, smooth turned on. Well, that was the edge split modifier doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So what I did is I want to turn off the edge split for these pipings, and for this piece I'm leaving it on, and the reason is I can turn it off like that, but it looks like crap. And if you think it looks like crap right here, then try to render that. You'll see how crappy it looks. So it works well with what I wanted it to do for the thruster housing. Doesn't work so well for this. But, you know, even with this, if I turn this on, when I rendered it, you didn't see this at all. I mean, you didn't see this geometry at all. So it doesn't really matter. So small, it doesn't matter. And it really, you know, all this stuff really depends on how detailed you're getting, how close up you're going to be taking your renders, what you're trying to accomplish. So you got to kind of consider all that, those kind of things, you know, as you're doing this. So that's all I did with this. I mean, I just added a few, you know, weird little pieces, what you might call greebles, and that's basically it. So now we have, you know, two engines. I need to turn the mirror back on for this as well. And I got a lot of stuff here that's not really part of it. That's not mirrored. Okay. Yeah, still missing my cylinders. Oh, I see. I created these separately outside of the mirror, so I'll need to mirror those. Not a big deal. Very easy to mirror. So we got our two thrusters going on. So the next thing I want to look at in this video is we're going to be looking at this docking port, and we're going to start giving this some detail. So before I start doing anything, I'm just going to do a file save as, like I've been normally doing. And I'm just going to make this version 9, save as blend file. And we're ready to rock and roll. So the first thing I'm going to look at is this docking port here. Let's improve this a bit. What I'm going to do is select it, tab into edit mode, and I'm going to select these faces around here. So Alt select right in the middle there, that selects all of them. And I want to select every other one. So if you go down to your select menu here, there is this thing called check or deselect, and that will check or deselect every other one. So that's pretty cool when you want to do something like that. One of my viewers brought that to my attention, and pretty nice tool when you need it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose E to extrude, select off of that, and scale it. Scale these out just a little bit, and then I'm going to go down here, change the pivot point to individual origins, scale again, and this will only scale the faces, like so. And then I might even, let's go back to median point, and just scale it back down a little bit. As we all know, all docking clamps on spaceships have these little docking things that fit into the docking, whatever you're docking to, if you're docking to a space station or whatever. So next what I'm going to do is I need a little bit more detail on this thing, so I'm just going to use the C tool and just select all these faces here. And I think what I'm going to do is just E extrude, scale it down a little bit. E extrude, come back like so. E extrude, scale down just a little bit. E extrude, scale it back in, just to give it some detail there. And so it's starting to look something like that. Another thing that we can do is we can grab our wheel that we made here. Let me go ahead and I'm going to shift select all these little pieces, or I'm going to try to, and then select this wheel at last, do a Control P, and that will set the parent. We're going to set it to object. That way anytime I select this, it'll drag everything with it. Unfortunately, I forgot this little piece down here. Select that, shift select, Control P, parent object, and I'm not sure what I did there, but okay. So going to, with everything selected, Shift D, duplicate it. Oh, that worked well. not duplicate it, well, at least we can move it around. One thing I forgot is that parenting doesn't work with when you do a duplication. So just going to shift select everything, shift D, and now we have it. So going to just, actually let me just move it over like this so it'll stay the same. RX90, enter, actually I want a -90, but I'll just do a RX180 and move it down into place. Control 1, rear view. Now I'm not going to have this big wheel on the back of my my docking clamp here. What I'm going to do is just scale this whole thing down and just move it into, I don't really want it in the center. I want it kind of offset like so. And we're going to put it into place like that. Now, I haven't put the materials on this at all. So whatever materials I end up putting on there, it's a good idea to do that, of course, before you start duplicating things around. But what this can do is give us an idea of where this is going to go. And, you know, if I do the material on the other one later on, I can just duplicate it again and throw it on here, no problem at all. Now, probably something else that I'm going to do here is something like, let's see, if I select this, I'm thinking about like grabbing some of these faces like so, Shift D, duplicate, bring it here, scale it down, and extrude. So I have something like that. And let me just L select this thing. Bring it in. Control 1, rear view. We can set our 3D cursor there. Shift D and our, we need to change our pivot point to the 3D cursor, so we need to make this its own part. So choose P, separate by selection, tab back in object mode, select that piece. It's already pivoted there, which is good. So all we need to do is rotate it and Shift D, rotate again, and we'll have something like that. Not crazy about that, but maybe once we get the textures and everything, it'll look better. Just kind of thinking of different things that I can do to make this look a little bit more interesting. And just thought of something else. Going to select these faces here. And unfortunately in this case, I don't know of any quick way to select all these faces. But luckily there's not a lot of them. And again, we're going to go to individual origins. E, select off of it. S, scale it down. And then change back to medium point. E, extrude, scale inward. Something like that. Makes it a little bit more interesting. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm doing there. I might put a few more details, but for our purposes, not too bad so far. Next thing I'm going to do is I want to work with a little bit of the body of the ship. There's something that's really been bothering me on this design. So what I'm going to do, tab into edit mode on the body, choose vertex view. And first of all, I want to get rid of this edge because this is not really it's not creating the angle for me. It is holding this part together, but I'm going to go ahead and choose X, delete edge loop, and I'm going to use this edge as the top of that. So I'm just going to grab, let's see, I can grab these two. Do I want that third one? Not really. Okay, so 3 side view, just kind of bring it forward like so. actually take this one and bring it back down a little bit. That straightens that out a little bit. And also, let's see, don't really like the way this one's sticking out the way it is, so I'm going to bring that back. And I actually need to bring this out further so there's not a space between that and the docking clamp. And that means that needs to come out, and this probably needs to come out a little bit. Okay, that's a little bit more like what I want it to look like. The other thing here is this needs to come in a little bit, perhaps. Okay. And I mean, basically what I'm doing here is I'm kind of just sculpting the ship design a little bit so that it's a little bit better looking, I think. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, let's type back in edit mode. You can do this a few ways. Before I do anything, I'm going to do a Control-S quick save. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some black lines along the some of these angles to kind of help them stand out a little bit better, and also give it kind of a neat design to it as well. Now you could do this with texturing. You can add a black line, but a lot of times I find that adding the actual geometry helps out a lot, or makes it look a lot nicer. So what I'm going to do, a Control-R edge loop, and put it right here. Just click on it once, and I'm going to choose 0.9, enter on the numpad, and that'll put it very close to this other line. So just to give you an idea what I'm doing here, I'm Control up arrow, go to my materials, and we are going to choose faces. I'm going to alt select this area here, so I'm selecting those edge loops, and come over here, add a new material, and let's see, I already have a glossy black, right? So yeah, I'm going to choose that and assign that there. So you can see right off the bat what that is doing. Looks pretty cool. Now, we don't really have to extrude this inward at all. It might look fine the way it is, but I think I'm going to extrude it in a little bit. So while it's selected, so I'm going to choose extrude, and if you look down at your bottom left-hand corner, I'm just going to go about -1. So it's just indented just a little bit like that. And if we tab out, you can see that it looks kind of cool. Okay, so I'm going to do pretty much the same thing with a few other lines here. I'm going to do this one here, Control-R, click on it once, and do a 0.9, enter, and come over to this one here, Control-R, the one in there, 0.9, enter. And I think that's all I'm going to do for now on those. You can get kind of crazy with it, and it'll end up looking pretty stupid if you go too far. But I'm going to go back and choose face view, alt select this, assign my material, do extrude, go in about negative, oops. Kind of hard to see what it's doing. Extrude about -1, and same thing with this. Alt select this face. If I can get to it. Assign the material. Extrude and -1. Something like that. So it gives it a bit of an interesting design quality there. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix these struts here that's holding these thrusters. And in order to do that, I'm going to put some cross bracing in there. And I really like doing like these mast type of cross bracing things on spaceships. I don't know why, I just think it looks really cool. So that's what we're going to do now. So again, to make things a little bit easier on ourselves, I'm going to do this on a different layer. But first I'm going to duplicate this, Shift D, grab this and let's move it to, what were we using here? Oh, let's just use the third layer. So M, throw it on the third layer, come over here to this layer, and we'll start working on our mast. Now the reason I'm bringing this over here, this duplicate, is I just want it as a reference to the length of the mast. So in order to make this, I'm just going to choose Shift A, go to Mesh, create a cylinder, and right off the bat hit the T menu, come over here, and I'm just going to make these like 16. They don't need to be, you know, that high vertices. And also, let's see, I do not need the cap fill at all. And go ahead and smooth it. So we got a nice smooth cylinder there. And let's do a RY90, enter, work along the 90, and let's go to front view, and I'm going to take this and I'm just going to rotate it like so, just to get an idea of how long this is going to be. So scale it down. So first I need to scale it down to how big the diameter I wanted this, so scale it way down. I don't want it too big. And then SX, want it a little bit longer than what I have there, just because part of it's going to be poking into the ship, part of it's going to be poking into the thrusters. So something like that. Still looks like it is too thick or too much diameter for me, so scale it down. SX. Okay, something like that, I think. Alright, so 7 top view. This image is kind of distracting me, so I'm going to choose N. Go up to our images, and I'm just going to turn this off for right now. Okay, control up arrow so we can see what we're doing here. Shift D, duplicate this piece, and I'm just going to move it over like so. What I want to do is I want to make two. Actually, I was going to make two separate, but I think I'll put two struts together. Well, probably the easiest thing to do is just move it over here where we can get an idea of the size. So Shift D once more, move it in the middle, something like that. Okay, now I can delete that so it's out of my way. Select another one of these, do a Shift D to duplicate, and just going to move it over here so we can see it. And I want this to be smaller diameter, so S, just scale the whole thing. Maybe about that small, something like that. SX, make it shorter. And let's do a RZ90. And let's do Shift D and bring it out and do a RZ45. Oops, what did I do there? RZ45. Okay, and just pull it into place here. Okay, looks like it needs to be a little bit longer, so let's undo that. SY, I'm just going to scale it up just a little bit. I'm just really just doing this by kind of like a manual guesswork. So RZ45. Okay, and bring it like so. Take this one, SY, scale it in like so. And this is sort of like our template now. We can take all of this stuff that we just did and make the rest of the mast. At least that's the plan. So Shift D on this one, and I can come down here, put that there, take this one, Shift D, and let's rotate on Z90, enter, and there you have that. So now we can shift select all these pieces, or not that one. Actually, yeah, that one, but not that one. And duplicate, Shift D, and just do this number right here. And maybe one more time, Shift D, Bring it down like so. And then maybe take, let's see, let's do a B box select all of this and kind of center it a little bit. And wow, it's almost like I planned on doing it that way. Okay, while that's selected, Shift D and do something like that. And I think this might work. I might still separate them. I'm not liking the way that it looks. So yeah, let's do that. I'm going to B box select this piece, X delete all that, and 7 top view. Let's B box select all this, and I'm just going to scale along the Y, S, Y, and something like that. Shift D, duplicate. Okay, back to my original plan, something like that. Okay, now we can select all this. Actually, we need to select one final thing, click on something and do a Control J, and that will join all of this stuff together. One part, so go back to our layers, choose M, and we're going to bring it back to the main layer here. Go back to our main ship, and I have my thruster still on this layer, so let's go ahead and select all this stuff and move it back to the main layer. I think I got everything. Alright, so now what we can do, hopefully, let's just H hide those for right now, just in case I need it as a reference. Drag this, just bring it down, one front view, and let's fix this pivot point. Choose T, go to set origin, and I want origin to geometry, and then I'm going to rotate it and just G move it into place right around there. It's looking something like that so far. Oops. And let me select the ship and look at this. Okay, so what I want to do here, I'm going to select this face, extrude, and just scale it in. Let's see, I can scale it some more. Yeah, not that much. Select this edge and choose GG, and just going to move this over to right about there. Same thing with this vertex right here. GG, oops, just that vertex, GG, and I'm just going to move that so we're boxing this in a little bit, GG on that. Okay, select faces, grab this one, extrude, and just going to extrude in, scale down a little bit, something like that. Okay, and again, you know, we can get more detailed and put something in there that looks normal. Grab this here, just need to bring this up a little bit. Okay, and for the thrusters themselves, see, now I have this problem of there's nothing really here to hold this. So, I mean, we can do a number of things here. We can create whatever we want to, but what we might want to do in this case, we have this nice cutout here, but it doesn't necessarily have to go all the way through. We can close up the space, or if you want to, you could take a cube and run it along here. I'm going to think about what I want to do. I mean, it's one of those creative parts of the tutorial where you can pretty much do it any way that you want to solve this. So I'm going to think about this. What I may end up doing, I think I may end up putting a cube across here and then closing this up so it looks like there's something that's, you know, actually sturdy part of this thruster that's holding that. That would make a lot more sense. So here we are with our ship so far. Oh, one thing I forgot to do, I need to mirror it. So select that, go to modifiers, add modifier, add the mirror modifier, and mirror it by our empty mirror. And there we have it. Okay, Control S, quick save, Control up arrow, go to full screen, and we can do our F12 render. As long as we get rid of that one piece that I just hid. So Alt H to bring it back, and X to delete it. Don't need that anymore. Okay, now we're ready to do F12. So there we have it, looking pretty cool, I think. I think on these mast things here, I might even could have went like thinner on them, so they separates them a little bit better. But looking pretty cool so far. I think what we'll do in the next part of the tutorial is we'll start roughing in the interior, because when I look at this render, that's what kind of screams out at me right now, is a big part of it that's not being done. So we'll rough in the interior. I don't think we're going to get too far with the interior in the next segment, but at least we'll get it roughed in and have an idea of what it's going to look like inside the ship. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.